This is my 2007 Polaris Predator 500. I picked this thing up for 500 bucks, and as you can see, it's a turnkey machine. It's ready to hop on and go. Well, actually not at all. 3 years ago, this thing was blown up from bent valves, tanked piston, and a totally blown bottom end. It's pretty bad. The good news is that I've got 30 days to get it ready for a competition going up against the Yamaha Raptor 686. 30 days is plenty of time to completely rebuild this engine and figure out all the problems with this quad. Will it be easy? Absolutely not. Is it possible? I don't think so. Let's get into it. We're headed to Delaware right now. We got a Predator. I mean, we basically already got it. We saw pictures of this thing. Wait till you guys see it. It's definitely my kind of deal.
Oh, dude, it's legit.
Yeah, which I really wasn't trying to do this because we're trying to get our Quad Wars. The Quad Wars 2 we went up. We're going to be filming it in like 3 weeks. And it's
gonna be tight.
Yeah, wait till you guys see this thing.
I've got everything out in the driveway for you. Do you want to reply?
No. Oh, nice.
Oh, dude.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, you're so losing. Sorry, man.
It's mint. It's mint. I'm gonna try to get this running in a week. A week? The big thing is gonna be parts, if I can get the parts.
As far as I know, everything is here.
It's really not that bad. It's just dirty.
Yeah. I bought a used one off the...
Oh. There we go.
Oh man, why do I always have to get basket cases, man? So we got the bottom end over here, the top end. It's nice that it's at least like together. You know, all the bolts are just kind of in place. You can actually pick that up as a unit. So I can sort of see how everything disassembles. That's the only thing when you get basket cases, man. If it's already apart, you don't even know how the damn thing goes back together. I've never touched a Predator in my entire life. I've never even ridden one. So I have no experience with Predators whatsoever. It'll be fun to figure it out. So we'll just look over this thing, dude. Plastics are actually, these are probably pretty good, man. They're actually white, believe it or not. I thought it was, you know, the traditional, you usually see gray Predators. But this one's white. It's an 07, which is, I believe that's the last year for the Predator 500. Tires are actually okay. The back are super beefy. These are those bear claws. More than likely going to switch those out with something else just because those are super heavy tires. Awesome for mud. Front tires I'm probably gonna end up tossing. You can see the wear pattern on these things. The toe out on this thing is crazy. I guess he was driving it that way, and that's probably why these tires are worn that way. So I think what I'll do is switch those tires out. It's got some aftermarket LEDs. Looks like he's got them mounted to the radiator somehow. Oh man, hose clamp. Yeah, I'll probably remove those. Make sure these things work, hopefully. There's also this here that I noticed. This is not an OEM weld. I can tell you that right now. And then up in here, I don't know if you guys can see. Oof, man, these are ugly welds. But apparently there was a steering stabilizer on here at one time. And oh my God, even if I had the steering stabilizer, I'd still cut these off and then re-weld it back on because whew, that is a learner's weld for sure. This is gonna have to go. Dude, like, what is this? I'm trying to figure this grab bar situation out here. I mean, it's bent up real bad. I think this is the OEM grab bar, which is kind of janky to begin with. Oh my God, dude. And then somebody welded on these bars. I don't know if they were trying to make like a 6-pack rack kind of deal or if this was for like standing on for wheelies. That is going though, dude. There's no way that that's going to remain on this bike. This ugly throttle, man. Polaris has some ugly stuff. Plastic. I remember sitting on these things in the dealership. Plastic. Oh, dude, what? Wow. It won't even move, dude. This thing has been sitting for 3 years. Wow. I imagine the brakes need to be serviced, flushed. It's got a choke up here. This is kind of like chintz. Oh, man. At least it has a key, right? But you know what's crazy is I think the bars are actually straight. I believe these are the OEM bars too. That's a rarity, dude. I feel like every quad I ever buy has at least tweaked bars. These I'm gonna take care of, man. I don't know why Polaris put these stupid reflectors. I think that makes these look like Chinese ATVs. Wow. Definitely, it looks like some kind of animal was in there. I see like little things that look like something was chewed on, like nibbled up in there. Oh yeah. Alrighty, I guess this is actually a piece of the filter. Oh man, I think that's rat turds. And here's the motor. So this guy, I may have this story slightly mixed up, but essentially he bought, well, this was his quad. I think he said he was the second owner and he sold it. He made the mistake of selling it to the guy and not getting payment first. And the guy blew it up like immediately. Look at this. Crank is totally shot. So he blew it up and then he never paid him. So he just went back and the guy had already started to break the quad down but never fixed anything. So the guy that I bought it from, he went and just took the quad back because he never paid him. Not too bad. Hopefully everything is in here. That's going to be the big thing. And then I did get some goodies over here. This is actually the best one right here. So this is, I don't think this is a new crank. I think this is a used crank that he bought, but it's good. It's a nice tight crank. The rust ain't gonna hurt anything. I'll lube that up, make sure the bearing and everything is good. So I've got the plastics off so that we could at least get a better eye on like the frame and what's going on in here. It's ugly. Oh my God, dude, this grab bar. Junk, man, total junk. So I kind of just went around everything. Everything is pretty tight for the most part. A-arms and everything feel pretty tight. This tie rod back here is bent, I noticed. The steering is a little bit loose. I'm probably gonna do the bearing at the bottom, the bushing at the top. This is that super ugly weld, dude. Oh man. These grips are trash. I don't know if these are the original grips. You can actually see the Polaris logo on there. These might be the OG grips. The swing arm bearings may actually be good, but I'm just gonna replace them while everything is off. Gonna be swapping out the tires. Tires on this 400 are actually in pretty good shape. I'll take the tires from this one, put it onto the Predator. Sprocket is shot. All the teeth are starting to look like a saw blade. So definitely sprockets front and rear. Up here, this one stay, you can see this one here. That's the rear plastic stay. This one is snapped off. Personally, I don't think you could go wrong with this deal. I didn't even have to negotiate, which is awesome. It said $500. How the hell can you lose with that, dude? You could part this thing out easy and make your money back. It's titled. I really don't think it's that bad. It's just got a bad crank. It looks bad when it's all apart. This is a great deal, man. I have the motor right here. You can see it's in mint condition. It's basically ready to be thrown in, and it's basically, 100% together. Not really, but what I did is I disassembled it partially just to kind of go over and inspect a couple of the pieces. Of course, I'm gonna have to crack these cases. God only knows what we'll find in there. Hopefully everything's good to go. But what I wanted to do was basically see what it's gonna take in parts to get this thing ready for the trails. It's looking pretty good, but let me give you a closer look. Before I jump into that, please give me a thumbs up if you're enjoying these videos. Also leave a comment in the comment section below. That helps me out big time. Don't forget to subscribe, guys. Hit that notification bell so you're alerted whenever I put up a new video. A lot of you guys are not subscribed, like literally 70% of you. Helps me out big time, so definitely consider hitting that subscription bell if you're interested in this content. Now, moving on to the motor, I pulled the clutch pack apart. There's a little bit of surface rust and stuff on this just because this motor's been sitting for so long. The basket looks okay. It is slightly grooved, but not bad. So I can clean that up with a file. The inner hub, I don't really feel the grooves. I think we'll be safe there. The center cases, we just won't know until we open it up. So hopefully it's good. I inspected the head, pulled the cam cap off, looked at the cams and everything. Everything looks pretty good in there. Cylinder checks out really good. I mean, I don't know if you guys will really be able to tell, but It's not bad, so I will hone that, make that nice and fresh. Or if we get the big bore kit, we'll be getting a new cylinder. These are the side covers here and here. Likely that when we do get to putting this thing together, we're probably going to start coming across some missing things. Bolts I can usually come up with. If it's for the motor, sometimes you got to make the order and get the special bolt, because that's one area you don't want to skimp out on, is the motor bolts. Yeah, so I have my list right here. I got 29 items on here. So let's hop over to the computer and see what we can do price-wise. Probably do eBay.
All right, guys, we are here on eBay. Let's just get started with the tie rod ends. Those were definitely loose. Let's see if we can find a good cheap set. These are $28.36 for all 4 tie rods. This should fit the Predator. It says 03 to 06, but I believe it will fit the 07 as well. Should be no problem with those. Add to cart. All right, next, let's see if we can find our chain. Got the 520, I like gold. $17.59 is a steel, free shipping. Add to cart. All right, let's see if we can get some front wheel bearings, because those wheel bearings were shot. Let's go down the list here. Let's see if we can get a kit with both sides, because even though the one side feels like it may be okay, definitely want to make sure that we're replacing both of them, because usually when one goes, the other side's about to go. $19.79. Add to cart. Now I was feeling a clutch cable and it feels pretty seized up, so we're gonna go ahead and order a new clutch cable. $9.98 with free shipping. Well, we'll give it a shot. Should be all right. Add to cart. All right, and I did notice on the motor a couple of the oil seals look pretty bad, so I would like to replace those. $13.87. Not gonna get much cheaper than that, so let's get them. Add to cart. All right, guys, so our cart total is $86.62. We are going to be buying more parts. Now, unfortunately, some of the parts that I already purchased were either used or they were the last item, so I can't add it in the cart and show you the total. But what I can do is show you guys the actual parts that I purchased. So this is an OEM skid plate. I could get an expensive one, but I didn't want to run with absolutely no skid plate at all. These OEM ones are kind of janky, but it's better than nothing. $10 to $12.80 shipping, so it's like $23. Worth it to me. So I picked this up. It actually already came in the mail. The next item I already purchased is this chain slider. This is only the one side I needed. You know, I could probably get away with the one that I have, but it has like a little crack in the side, and I kind of just don't want to run that. For $16 shipped, it's worth getting this one. No problem, add to cart. The next item I bought that was used is a 400EX thumb throttle. It's $49 with free shipping. That's gonna make the thumb throttle just feel a lot better. I'm telling you, man, that Polaris thumb throttle is junk. This is gonna be an awesome upgrade. Add to cart. Another thing I bought was a bumper for the front. It was $80 and $8.04 shipping. A little bit pricey, I guess, but not too bad. Add to cart. All right, guys, now there's one other thing that we have to get, and that is a grab bar. So here's the grab bar that I ended up getting. It's the DG Fat Series. This is a great upgrade. You know, anything is better than the spoiler that we have on there. So add to cart. All right, guys, now we're gonna move on to RockyMountainATVMC.com. Rocky Mountain is probably my #1 source for OEM parts. I've already added all those items in my cart. So you can see here, it's like spacers, this is a rubber damper, bolts, washers, just all kinds of stuff like that. When I went over the bike, I just looked for things that were missing. Here's that tie rod that we need to replace. That was $34.13, washers, chain slider for the rear swing arm. All right, now aside from the OEM parts, I do want to get some new grips. So we're gonna go ATV grips. So I did spot these grips here. They are by Torque One, called Hot Laps. And they had really good reviews, so I wanna give them a shot. I'm gonna get the blue ones because I think that'll give it kind of a unique look. Pretty cool. Add to cart. Now, our rear carrier bearings were totally shot, so Tusk actually makes a rebuild kit. $40. We'll get new bearings here. Add to cart. Next, we're gonna get a swing arm bearing kit. Let's just get them. Add to cart. Next thing I wanna get is sprockets. Add to cart. Now for the handlebars, I'm going with another brand that I don't typically use, and that's ODI. So we're gonna try it out. $60, not bad. Add to cart. All right, you can't forget about the battery. That one was totally shot. So Tusk offers a great economical battery. $40. I feel like I can't really go wrong, and this should be a direct fit. Add to cart. One other thing I want to add, I want to get this Pro Taper Sport clutch. It's just a nice clutch perch, makes adjusting the clutch cable really easy. It's cheap enough. It's $27. Add to cart. Our total is $435.65. Not too bad considering we only paid $500 for the bike. Now let's add some power mods. All right, we are here on BP Racing ATV. BP Racing has tons of parts pretty much for any motor that you can possibly think of when it comes to power sports. This one right here has the big bore kit, and it's got hot cams for $1,099. Now, the reason this kit is so expensive is actually because these cylinders are really hard to get for these things. So, you know, parts are getting really scarce for the Predator 500. That's what I'm gonna go with, man. Let's make this ATV have some balls. Add to cart. And last but not least, I picked up one of these DMC Alien exhausts. This is a discontinued exhaust. I found one in pretty good condition, almost like new, on Craigslist, and I got it for 250 bucks. After shipping, it came out to about $275. The total parts is $2,277.72. Pretty steep, but it's really not that bad considering what it is. So this quad better be badass or I'm gonna be pissed off.
Okay guys, so while I'm waiting for the parts, I'm gonna get cracking on the crank. I'm gonna split those cases. We already have that crankshaft. We'll put the new crank in there. Hopefully everything checks out on the internals of the engine. And then I can start assembling the engine. I can port the head. I can do my flywheel mods. I can pretty much get the bottom end entirely together while I'm waiting for the piston. We'll see, but hopefully the parts will come in quickly. And I will also be doing the tires first thing tomorrow. And then otherwise, it's just gonna be waiting for the parts. And like I said, guys, I'm just really hoping that all this stuff comes in really soon. Let me go ahead and show you guys what I've done since the last time we met. So the Predator's actually looking pretty damn clean. I cleaned up the plastics and they're actually white. They cleaned up really nicely. I took all the decals and stuff off. You can kind of see like the ghost print of where they were. There were a bunch of them, man. They were on here, they were on the other side. There was a registration sticker over there. I had one here, and I took those lousy reflectors off. I think it just looks way cleaner without them. We got some more stuff to take off. These things are gonna go right away. And of course we gotta take the spoiler off because we don't really need a spoiler. This is an atrocity of a grab bar. I'm about to take these plastics off and show you a couple things. I did find something that I'm not too happy about. So let me pop these plastics off and I will show you what's going on underneath. It's kind of a mess. She cleaned up pretty nicely. Show you inside the airbox. That thing was pretty gunked up. I've got the Kenda claws in the back, and I believe these are Maxxis tires in the front. And these are kind of interesting tires. They're dual rotation. See, for hard pack, you rotate them that way, and for soft, they go this way. I don't know how I missed this. That steering stem is most definitely bent. You know, I was bragging about how the bars weren't bent. I think it's because it's bent straight back. Like if you turn it on an angle, if it's straight ahead, you kind of can't see. And I didn't pull the tank off when I was looking at this thing. I mean, I still would have bought it. It was a $500 quad. And then the frame is slightly tweaked. You can see the wrinkle right here. And up top, there's like a little bit of a belly. And then coming around the back, I'll show you guys the swing arm cleaned up really, really nice. I always like to clean up my stuff before I start working on it because we're gonna be pulling this apart and replacing some bearings. The other thing I want to address is the engine. I want to pull that thing apart, clean all of the motor pieces. We'll throw them in the parts cleaner, see what it looks like. I'm gonna split the cases, all that stuff, so that we can actually get that bottom end together. I am a little bit worried about this because I just noticed now that somebody did try to split these cases and they didn't even take the shifter off. It doesn't look like. It's all dirty and muddy. You know, it doesn't even look like they pulled it off and then put it back on. So that is questionable. You can see it's split here. I see some pry marks in there, and then back here, it's nice and tight still. So they obviously were not successful, but that is that is not a good sign. So let's pull this thing apart. All right, guys, so we have all of the components on the clutch and stator side removed. So we kind of got away with no casualties. Well, sort of. I did have a reverse switch right here that actually cracked. It was pretty flimsy. So I'll be ordering another one of those. But anyways, we're going to go ahead and split the cases. Right here, I have my Tusk case splitting tool. You guys can pick these up at RockyMountainATV.com. I will have the links in the description below for these tools, both of the splitting and the crank puller installing tool. So what we're going to do here is find 3 solid points to thread in these studs. You want to thread them in as far as you possibly can because you're going to be putting some force on these and you don't want to rip out the threads. Then these jam nuts can be brought down. I just make them finger tight. Now on our actual tool, we're going to unthread this centerpiece. Not all the way, but just enough so that we can get it around our crank. There we go, that should be good. You want it sitting nice and flush. And then we're going to thread down these nuts on top. Now we'll thread down our pusher, get all the slack out of it, and then just push this down until the case is split. Oop, there it goes. I think everything in this case is really tight, probably from sitting for so long. That's the crank. on the other side. Oh, actually, it's the crank bearing it looks like is coming out. All right, case halves are off. Let's see if we can pull our transmission out of here. We've got an oil screen down here. Be interesting to see what this looks like. Yeah, that's really in there. I'll probably let the oil work its way in here because it's a steel filter. I'd like to reuse that. I don't want to rip this tab off. So in order to get the counterbalancer and the crank out, we'll have to come around the other side. There's our crank. All right, guys, so here's where we're at. Here's the cases. You can see quite a bit of crud underneath. The crank balancer pulled out, and I did get that little oil screen out. I just had to let the oil soak, and then I managed to break it free. Not horrible. You can see the junk in there. That is the magnetic drain plug. We're going to clean these things up, make them look like brand new. We're actually in pretty good shape, though. The bearings feel like they're in good condition. Crank bearings feel tight. I will have to pull this crank bearing right here. I just discovered that new crank bearings are not easy to come by. So luckily, these feel like they're good bearings. They're nice and tight, so we will be able to reuse them. But I'm really thankful for that because not looking easy to find those. Transmission checks out. Did not see any broken gears, worn dogs, or anything. So we got lucky there. The bottom end, everything really does look good. Basically, just everything needs to be cleaned up. Oh my God, these things are so cruddy. So yeah, let's get to cleaning these things. All right, guys, it's the next day. These parts actually cleaned up pretty well, especially these covers. They really don't look bad at all. Head cleaned up pretty nicely. And even the inside of the cases here are really clean. I'm really happy with that. The outside, we've got some crud on them. We're gonna take care of that right now. These things work really well for cleaning up cases. I don't have a vapor blaster or sandblaster or anything, so it's kind of like the poor man's way of doing it. I'll be using that and a Dremel. We'll see if we can clean them up, make them look like brand new. So that knocked out some of the big stuff. You can see this ain't gonna be like show quality or nothing, but this isn't supposed to be a show quality quad or full build or anything. And now what I'm gonna do is take these little Scotch-Brite attachments for the Dremel, and I'm just gonna go around and get all the little details and stuff. Like I said, I ain't gonna get everything, but it's gonna look a hell of a lot better than it did. They cleaned up pretty nice. They're not perfect. You know, I missed a couple spots and I can't get in all the grooves and stuff. But like I was saying before, this is not supposed to be a show quad or a full build or anything. But I do like getting that brownish turd color off because it just looks like crap. But these cleaned up really, really nice. Once this is together, this is going to look really good when it's in the frame. All of the dowels were stuck, and I'm going to be replacing all of these. You can see this is one of the nicer ones that didn't get jimmied up that bad. And that's just gasket sealer on it. But this one, this was my favorite one right here. This probably took about an hour to get out. This thing was seized so bad. Every single one of these things was seized. You got to put anti-seize on these things when you put them back together, otherwise that happens.
Now these cases were in serious need of medical attention. I surfaced all of the mating areas, made sure they were nice and flat, and man, they did need some work.
All right, check that out. That should be good. I don't see any blue spots. Like right here, you can see those were pry marks. We're not going to get those out.
Now moving into the head, unfortunately, I did find some bent valves. Big surprise. Luckily, the valve seats were okay, so I ordered up some Kibble white valves and dual beehive springs, and we should be good to go there. I also decided to do some porting on the head. I wanted to remove the casting marks, open up the ports, remove some of the ridges from the valve seats into the head casting, and I also wanted to match up the exhaust ports with our new DMC header, as well as matching the intake boot with the intake ports.
All right, guys, check it out. Cylinder head is complete. Got our ports all ported out, but I opened these up quite a bit. I smoothed out the exhaust side, and I'm leaving the intake side a little bit rough, but it's still pretty smooth to the touch. The exhaust side is just a little bit smoother. I opened up these exhaust ports about 2.5 millimeters. They're about 32.5 millimeters, which is about the exact size of the inner diameter of our DMC Alien exhaust. Show you the intake here. I opened this up probably 4 millimeters, I would say. And I opened this up there just a tiny little bit. I have to clean this off yet. But when this is on here, they match up perfectly. So that should open up the airway just a little bit. And then of course I went and surfaced this thing. I will be cleaning up the valve seats with some valve grinding compound, but we can't do that because we have bent valves. So for now, the cylinder head is good to go. All right, guys, so that's gonna about wrap it up for today. A lot of work getting these cases into the condition that they are right now, porting the cylinder and everything. Just a lot of work going into this, but you know, this is really when you take your time and do stuff the right way, this should make a really good, reliable quad that's gonna last us a long time. And hopefully we get some badass performance out of it. I'm hoping that port work that I did matches up really nicely with the combination that I'm planning to do. I did order some crank bearings. Unfortunately, almost every single place that I've looked online, that's just a discontinued part, and unfortunately I got an email back from the company that I ordered the bearings from saying that they were discontinued and they canceled my order. So I'm having trouble getting crank bearings. Luckily the ones that are in there they feel good. I would just really like to replace them. I found a substitute that might work. I'm gonna see what happens, but that's the status on the crank bearings. So until the big bore kit shows up and some of the other motor parts, we're gonna set the motor aside and we're gonna focus on the body. And then all right guys, let's see if we can get this rear carrier off without a problem. I think these are actually standard bolts. That's one of the weird things about the Predator, is that the chassis has standard bolts. Oh, look at that, it came right out. And the engine has metric, which is really weird. I don't know why you did that, Polaris. It's a pretty nice anti-fade style nut, and it looks like it's gonna be easy to work with. Come on, you little bastard. There we go. Nice. It's a tight ass hub. It's always a victory when the axle comes out no problem. All right, here's our swing arm. Everything came off pretty easily. It's a no-link rear. That's pretty nice. So I'm gonna clean that up, clean the skid plate up. We'll clean the disc brake. The axle is over there. It's got grease and stuff all over it. So I'm gonna wash that off. I have the carrier and all of the carrier pieces over here. Carrier is actually in good shape. It's not like cracked or anything. So I'll clean these things up in the parts cleaner, and then we'll come back and we'll see how bad those bearings are. All right, guys, check it out. This stuff cleaned up pretty nicely. Honestly, man, the more I get into this quad, I'm not really seeing why people hate these things. So far, I don't see anything weird or like hard to work on. This is the OEM swing arm. This is a nice swing arm, dude. This is like usually what somebody would upgrade to. It's a steel swing arm. It's a no-link rear end. Uses a cam style carrier. This uses taper fit bearings, which is an upgrade also. These are I believe these are actually stronger than traditional roller bearings, which is what you usually see in carriers. It doesn't utilize the sleeve in the center because taper fits require pressure on both ends, and that keeps them nice and centered. And I think these bearings are actually good, the ones that are in here. I didn't realize they were taper fits, so when they were wiggling around, that's just because the axle nut wasn't tight. But since we have the bearings, we got a new Tusk kit right here, we might as well put the new bearings in there. I also have swing arm bearings from All Balls. We'll just replace those. I'm pretty sure these are also decent as well, but like I said, we have everything apart. We're just gonna switch it out. We've got the old chain slider here. This thing was wasted. Got a brand new OEM one right here. It's kind of like a weird material. It's like a softer rubber. If you guys can see, but it bends. Usually these are like a hard plastic. Brake components and stuff are over here. This brake rotor will be okay. It definitely could be replaced. The black spot there is where rust was. You can see a little bit of pitting, but the disc itself is not warped, and it's pretty thick. It doesn't, once it gets a little bit of braking on there, most of that you probably won't even be able to see, but for now, that'll be just fine. You know, we're really not looking to stop anyways. And the axle here, put the new sprocket on here. This is the 38 tooth, or 37 rather. The one that came off is the 37. You can see the teeth are worn. This thing's gonna go right into the scrap bin. Got a really nice swing arm skid here. should be good to go, and it'll look pretty clean when it's back on there. All right, so let's take care of this carrier. You can see even the seals on here look pretty good. I imagine these bearings, they might even be somewhat fresh, but we'll go ahead and change them out. Just gonna use a flathead here. Clean this up real quick in the parts washer. All right, so now we got this all cleaned up. You can see the tapered outer race in there. You can see these things have been sitting for a while with those little rust marks. So inside you can see these little open pockets. That's so that you can come through the other side with a punch and tap that outer race, because you can see these sit pretty much flush. You wouldn't be able to get in there if they didn't have these recessions. So I've got 2 blocks of wood set up here. Just going to kind of set these boards up on the edge, and we'll tap that outer race right through. All right, so there's our carrier. Those things came out no problem. So what I'm going to do is put this in the oven at about 220 degrees. That will help this expand, and I have our outer races, the new ones, there in the refrigerator. That will contract them, and it should be really easy to put those in. All right, now while that is in the oven, we're going to go ahead and pull the bearings out of our swing arm. Oh, shit. Damn. Whoops. Well, shit happens. Those bearings went in pretty easy. Put our new chain slider in place. Put a little grease in here. Man, these are tight seals. Whew. Man, is that tight. Man, that's nice. That's what she said. All right, now we got our carrier fresh out of the oven, and we've got our inner races fresh out of the fridge. Now this might just drop in place. Not sure what's going to happen. And they do make tools just for this, but I'm going to use the old bearing. Wow. It dropped right into place. All right, just make sure it's seated up in there. I think we're good. You can see those bearing races in there. Ooh, man, this thing's still hot. All right, so we've got our bearing grease here, and I got a glove on because this is gonna be messy. I'm just gonna get a whole bunch of grease out on my palm there. So we're gonna take this bearing and essentially just kind of massage the grease inside, doing the same thing until it's packed with grease. Oh, there you can see it actually popping through. And this will give the bearings much more longevity. All right, so our swing arm, our carrier, skid plate, all that stuff is good to go. I want to clean up this front end. I did manage to get a brand new steering stem. Check this out. Well, brand new pre-owned steering stem. This is from PSN Power Sports. They are an ATV salvage yard. So if you guys are looking for any kind of Frankenstein parts, weird parts, things you can't get anymore, like for this Predator 500, PSN is definitely a good resource to have. They sent me some fresh shocks here. Now, the reason I wanted these is because in 07, for some reason, Polaris decided to downgrade to these, non-reservoir shocks. From what I've read on forums and whatnot, these old school, well, I call them old school, but really they had these on the 06, and they might have even been on some of the 07s. But these Fox Podiums are supposed to be a nice upgrade compared to these. So I'm going to see if I can possibly have these things rebuilt. But first and foremost, let's take care of that steering stem. So I'm just going to start breaking down this front end. We'll get those LED lights off. I know you guys love those. And I'll probably take the fuel pump off and stuff because I'm planning on deleting that. See if we can get that steering stem out of there. And also want to address that bent frame. All right, first things first. Let's get these lights off of here. I know a lot of you guys were ripping these things up in the comments. But apparently, according to the previous owner, these things were very effective.
where they're located, and I guess these are pretty bright. Maybe I will use these for some other application, probably not on this quad. Questionable wire job. Looks like he has it grounded to the frame, and the power line is just spliced right into the actual headlight wire. You guys know me. I like making things look as OEM as possible. Even if I am going to do some sort of aftermarket choice, I like it to be, you know, if you don't know what the quad looks like OEM, you might still think it's OEM. While we're at it, we'll strip our handlebars. Start with this ugly ass clunky thumb throttle from Polaris. This thing looks like crap. Get this master cylinder off. All right, we'll take this off. Oh. Well, now see, here is something I could see why people get so annoyed with Polaris. Just like different fasteners everywhere. That side was Allen head. Now, granted, this stuff could have been replaced and switched, but I don't think so. Now this side is Torx. Like, why not just make it the same? Wow. Well, luckily these grips were barely held on here. Get these bars off. Polaris uses a through bolt design. Man, this thing is just getting better and better looking by the minute because it's just disappearing. More and more of it is just gone. Now, I'm just kidding, guys, but it kind of does look a little bit better without those lights and stuff like that on there. So I have it, you know, torn down basically to the steering stem. I'm going to go ahead and pull that off camera. Ooh, yeah. So there it is. It is a little worse bent than I thought. And it's not just straight back. That's looking at it head on. You can see it's twisted to the side. And it's got a real nice belly in the back. I can't believe this fooled me. It's bent so bad. I can't believe I thought that this was straight.
You know what's crazy is I think the bars are actually straight.
Here's the good one from PSN Parts. That will be going in. And I did take a good deal of stuff off. I got the hubs off, got the tie rods off. And, you know, as I'm taking things off of this, I'm just finding more and more. It's like a mixture of really nice premium stuff and then a bunch of like, just why would you do that? Catastrophe has struck yet again, but what else is new, right? We'll take care of this. So before we even get into the catastrophe, I just want everybody to take note of this beautiful weld here. This is really just a masterpiece and just the overall condition of this beautiful, beautiful steering stem. This will be offered for sale once I'm done with the modifications. Will probably be $395. Now, what I just noticed now, and I guess I didn't notice this because this bag was clamped on here with all the hardware from PSN. So actually, let me get rid of that right now. Some of you Predator guys are probably yelling as I was showing the steering stem like, "Ah, no, you got the wrong year." So you'll see the flag, or flags, I guess you would call them, on this steering stem is different than the one that came off. So this kind of has like, the 07 has like the traditional flag style with the two holes for the two tie rods. And from 03 to 06, the Predator had this interesting linkage system that was supposed to reduce bump steer. I actually spoke with the designer. It's supposed to be a really good system. It's supposed to have almost zero bump steer. If it might even have zero with this system. The thing is, it was more expensive and a little bit more complex for Polaris to use that. So in 07, they switched it to the traditional style, which is kind of a catch-22. I kind of like this style just because it's what I'm used to. It's less parts. For me, it's a little bit easier to work on. However, supposedly this is actually a better system. So what I'm going to do is cut the steering stem right about here, cut the steering stem right about here, and we're going to weld on the flag in the lower portion onto this steering stem, and we're going to make it work just fine. All right, well, this is drying. We'll go ahead and see if we can straighten our frame out. So I'm gonna see if I can set some kind of thing up here with a jack right here. that we can press right here and get that bend out. All right, guys, check it out. So I have this board that I have ratchet strapped to the frame, so that won't move anywhere. I cut a small angle in it. This jack fits on that flat spot perfectly, and we should be able to press out that little belly. Let's give it a shot. All right, now we have it nice and straight. Got both of those wrinkles out. They look perfect. And the whole piece is straight. Right now, I'm pretty sure that's exactly how it's supposed to be. Before I take the pressure off of this jack, I'm gonna sand this down right here and just put a gusset on both sides. Just a nice piece of steel. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. This is just such thin sheet metal. Anything is gonna help that. Just to keep this, because that's what happened. You saw that wrinkled from being pushed back. If this is reinforced, it'll be less likely to bend. Looks like we're gonna be good. The pressure is off the jack, but it looks nice and straight to me. All right, guys, there she is. Threw a quick coat of satin black on there with primer, just so we don't get any rust or anything. Doesn't have to be beautiful. We should be pretty good to go. Let's get that steering stem in there. Now we can hit this thing with a little bit of grease. And we've got a super smooth and tight steering stem. So we're getting a lot of stuff done that I didn't even realize needed to be done to this thing. I wasn't expecting to have bent frame and stuff like that. But since we're waiting for those motor parts, it's kind of working out, getting this stuff done.
I want to stop to thank you for making it this far into the video. I'd also like to thank the companies that helped to make this project possible. Rocky Mountain ATV and BP Racing helped tremendously in the parts department. Links to parts in this video will be in the description below. If you're looking for a way to support the channel, using the links in the description helps me out big time by giving me a small kickback, and there's no extra cost to you. Also, if you're enjoying this video, please consider giving me a thumbs up and also consider hitting that subscribe button. That helps me out a ton. And if you're looking to support the channel even further, there is the option to join. All channel members get guaranteed responses to their comments. I will also be changing the channel name to Basket Case Garage. As you can see by this Predator project, basket cases are definitely one of my specialties. All right, guys, let's get back to the build.
Well, the to-do list on the Predator is slimming down as we're still waiting for motor parts to build that 560 motor. Hopefully this week those parts will come and we will be moving into that. There are a few things that I do want to get done that we can do in the meantime though. So while you guys were away, I went ahead and put new bearings in our front hubs. I painted these little disc guards. I took the back disc guards off because they were actually rubbing a little bit, creating a little bit of friction. I put new brake pads in here, and that's a little bit of anti-seize on there. Everything is nice and smooth. Upgraded to cotter pin or hitch pins in these front spindles. I will put a zip tie on the end here because last thing you want is for those to fly out. But you guys know me, I hate cotter pins. I always upgrade to hitch pins. So much easier to take out and put back in. So I do want to remove this tab here. This beautiful, well, I mean, you just gotta, let's take a moment to appreciate this. It's just beautiful. So we're gonna chop that off, make it look like it was never there. There's a little hole here. I'm not sure why that was there. There was actually a piece of duct tape covering it. So we'll weld that up, make it look like it was never there. Get rid of these stickers. They're like the manufacture dates. It looks like, what's that, April of 2006 it was made. You know, I would normally leave stuff like that, but since it's all botched up and this one has like a little bit of spray paint weld over and stuff, but to get that off of there because it looks ugly. And while I have the welder out, I'm gonna repair this rear fender support. This is the way it's supposed to look. I do have the portion that goes right here. It's attached to the plastics, so I might as well fix that. And amongst those things, we have these beautiful parts. So I'll just take you down the line here. We have a Tusk Power Sports battery. We've got an AC bumper. This is a new old stock, man. I actually had to clean this thing up. It was covered in dust. This thing has probably been sitting on a shelf forever. For the back, we have the DG Fat Bar. Again, new old stock. I left it in the bag so that you guys could check it out. So then we have some ODI bars. We've got a Pro Taper Sport clutch perch. Then we're moving on to some Torque One racing grips. The blue with the gunmetal. I just don't know. We'll see what it looks like. I think it'll look cool. We have the used Honda thumb throttle. Just look at the difference here. Like the clunkiness of the Polaris one, and it's so light. Weighs almost nothing. This one's nice and heavy. This is all plastic, all metal. I'm sorry, Polaris. I just can't back you on this one, man. You guys really, you got to step up the game with the thumb throttles, man. Hopefully your Sportsmans nowadays come with nicer thumb throttles. All right, guys, let's hop right into it and get rid of this ugly-ass tab, fill this hole, and fix this fender support.
I'd actually rather use a cutoff wheel here, but I'm out of blades, so I'm going to use a Sawzall. Should still get the job done.
You know, this bracket really didn't turn out too bad. So the paint's dry in there. Frame is all done. If I spent a little bit more time, probably could have made that perfect. But you got to remember, guys, this is not a show quad. This side you can't really see. I gave the whole front portion of the frame here a light spray because that paint that I'm using, it's a matte black. And the OEM color is more of a flat black. You can see up there. Now this is still a little bit wet, so that should flatten out a little bit. Like if you look at up top where our gussets are, that's that same color paint. So it should look like that when it's dry. All right, we can get our controls on here. Start with the handlebars. Definitely not the biggest fan of this through bolt design that Polaris has. Slide our controls in place, put our new grips on. Oh, what the f***? Shit sucks. This is definitely... Oh, are you f***ing me, man? Yeah, this is the super glue. Son of a bitch. Super glue type of grip glue, probably not my favorite. So I don't know if I'd recommend using this grip glue that comes with these grips. These controls actually turned out pretty good. The instrument cluster isn't as congested as I thought it would be. It's easy enough to get to the key. Can see all of our indicator lights. We're not going to be utilizing the choke, so I may end up sawing this portion out or putting something on here to fill that because it looks kind of weird. The Honda thumb throttle on there, that looks way better than before. Definitely looking pretty clean. All right, now before we put on our bumper and our grab bar, I want to go ahead and put the battery in place. Ooh, man, this is going to look nice. And I
guess we'll have to take off this grab bar. I mean, I really like this grab bar, but you know, you guys don't like it, so I guess I have to take it off. Oh man, so we're actually starting to look pretty good here. The controls look really good. The steering stem is nice and straight and tight. Everything is coming together. Like I said, you know, there's nothing like having good handlebars and controls and everything. I just think that makes a machine feel so much more premium. And when you're riding, it just feels that much better. We got the nice bumper on there. Love that AC bumper. Got rid of our spoiler, man. But this is a sweet ass grab bar that we have on there. So it's coming together, man. We are going to be waiting for the motor parts. I did get some crank bearings that ended up not fitting. So I just ordered another set that I think will fit. Let's hope so. Otherwise, we will be using the crank bearings that came out. And we have our parts from BP Racing coming in hopefully this week. So we'll be getting this thing together pretty soon. All right, guys, it's D-Day. We're gonna build the Predator motor. I have everything somewhat organized, laid out on the bench here. It kind of looks like a hodgepodge, but I have pretty much everything out here together. Everything is clean, ready to go. There are some things that are not here yet. We still don't have our valve seat springs, but hopefully by the time we get to the top end, we will have those. They should probably be in the mail tomorrow. And then I also have my cylinder on the way. That is the stock cylinder. We've got a 560 big bore kit coming. Over here, I have the old crank. I have our case half that we're gonna get started working on. Of course, I've got our climber service manual right here. And of course, we've got the dead blow. You need the BFH, right?
Pretty Caroline, stone cold stunner. She was a winner, started working at the dime. Serves his upper mind to count your blessings, 'cause it's telling fair. They'll put you down and leave you dead, don't make them scared. Yeah, it's the ugly truth.
So we're using MAP gas here. It gets a little bit hotter than propane. I'm just gonna heat this bearing up and get it to expand. All right, here's our crank fresh out of the freezer. You can see we've got the gear pressed on there already. Major pain in the ass that was. And I did true and weld this crank. This is the first one that I did myself. And what we're gonna be doing is just popping it right in place. You wanna make sure that you have the tapered side going in. You don't wanna put the wrong side in. Oh, look at that. It went right in. No work at all. You've got to be kidding me. Oh my God, are you serious? What the hell? Are you serious?
No work at all.
I can't f***ing believe this. Un-f***ing believable. Un-f***ing believable.
All right, guys, so amongst many flops and follies, I did get the Predator engine together. Now, it's not exactly the easiest platform to work on, so I do have a full step-by-step build video on this engine. So if you're looking for more details on this build, definitely check that video out. I will have that linked in the description below. The Predator 500 underwent a number of small changes over the years of production, and many of them are hard to be prepared for if you're not familiar with the engine. Unfortunately, I fell into a lot of these pitfalls, but in the end, we got her together. We might make a couple stops along the way, but for this video, let's throw the engine build into hyperspeed.
Now we've got our flywheel here. can see I have shaved the weight. You can see the shaved down areas and stuff. I also advanced the timing on this thing. And then we have our starter gear here. And that is going to mate in here. And you can see it should only go one way. It can spin freely this way, but not the other way. That's what you want. If it's moving in both directions, you know, you might need a new starter clutch. Now, when you put this on, you have your little keyway in here, and then you have a keyway on your crank. Now, this is important because a lot of Predator guys were telling me in the comments that it's really common for a Predator to shear the Woodruff key on your crankshaft. And then your engine goes out of time, you know, your flywheel spins and everything, and that can lead to a whole mess of problems. It's really important that you have a good mating surface between the inside of your flywheel and the tapered portion of your crank. So what you can do, especially if you have a different crank and flywheel, like it wasn't the OEM ones that you pulled off, you're using mismatched parts, you want to make sure that the taper is exactly the same. So what I use is a little bit of valve grinding compound, like lapping compound. You put it on your crankshaft, then you put a little bit on the inside of your flywheel, put it on there, and you rub back and forth. You'll hear like a gritty sound, and what that does is it mates these surfaces so that they've got the exact same taper. That's a trick that a lot of snowmobile guys use with their primary and secondary clutches on the taper shafts that they're not even keyed usually, so they need it to be a super tight fit. So if you don't have a perfectly seated flywheel and there's any kind of like gaps or anything, that's when you're more likely to shear one of your Woodruff keys. So we should have good results here. You want to make sure your keyways are nice and clean too, so you know that your key is sitting all the way in there. All right, with our key in there, we've got a bearing that goes in place. Put our starter gear in and our flywheel. We've got a washer that goes on here, a little bit of red Loctite. Spin our nut on. Now the flywheel gets tightened to 110 foot-pounds to keep the crank from rotating. I'm going to put a steel bar through our rod. All right, man, now let's get to the good stuff. This is our brand new 105.5 millimeter cylinder. It is Nikasil coated. This will bring us to 560 cc's. Check this out. Here is the motor. It's looking really clean. I'm really happy with the way this is turning out. I'm waiting for clutch fibers, so we can't put the clutch together. That's why this half of the engine, I mean, it's practically done. I discovered that the gasket kit is different from 03, 04 and 05 to 07. The bottom end anyways. The top end I believe is the same. I had two gasket kits for this thing. Neither one of them fit. So the only one that fit is the stator side. That one is universal. I've got the 39 millimeter FCR style carb. We're gonna test it out. It should be way better than the junky carb that came off of it, man. That thing was trash. We're running a 6-inch Uni dual stage filter with an outerwear on it, and we're not going to be running the airbox. So that should maximize the flow big time. The cam cover, I painted wrinkle black. I think that came out really clean. On the body, I got the suspension back from Smitty's Shocks. They are fully rebuilt, ready to rock and roll. They're set up for 220 pounds, front and rear. I don't know if you guys can see the rear one in the back there. Looks so much better with those resis on there, man. That's just the way a Predator's supposed to look. Any ATV looks better when you have the resi shocks, at least in my opinion. So just to go over some specs of the motor, this is a 560cc big bore kit. It is a Nikasil cylinder. Some people were saying that
you know, you're going to have problems with a 560 kit because the sleeves like to drop in them. Well, it's not a sleeved cylinder, it's Nikasil. So this is an updated version. It should be really reliable and it should last like forever because it's Nikasil. That stuff is awesome. And we're also running, right now we have got the stock cams in it. Now webcam makes a cam. The specs on that would be premium for this. But the only thing is there's a major wait period for webcams. So we're just going to run the stock cams for now. From what I read online, the stock cams are actually pretty decent in the Predator. All right, guys, good news. We got our clutch pack in the mail. I've got it in this plastic bag soaking in oil. It's probably been soaking for about 5 hours. I've also got the discs right here. I am reusing the discs that came out of the quad. They look to be in pretty good shape. I scuffed them up on the surfacing board just to make sure that they have a good gripping surface. All right, we're about ready to get this thing fired up. I will show you guys what's going on here. It's not done yet, but we're at the point where we can fire it and just make sure that everything works. And I don't really feel like waiting any longer, so let's see what happens. Oh, wow. Wow, look what I just found. Huh, wow. Both sides are cracked. All right, well, I guess I'll be welding that up tonight. All right, let's see if it starts anyways.
All right, first start. Predator 560. Pray for me, guys.
All right, it runs. It sounds kind of shitty, in my opinion. I don't know. We'll have to see. It definitely needs to be jetted. I kind of have like random jets in there right now, something that I kind of guesstimated. But anyways, I'm going to go ahead and put the coolant in this thing so that we can, you know, actually put some time on it and all, because right now there is no coolant in it. Actually, guys, before we do anything, let's take care of that crack in the frame. I just can't believe I didn't notice that. I can't believe you guys didn't notice that. Yeah, that's a pretty big crack there. So I've moved everything out of the way here. Took the back exhaust off. I was going to take the rear shock off, but honestly, I think I've got enough room to get in there. I'm going to take probably the Dremel and grind a little V all the way around this so that I can fill that whole thing in with weld, and it should be good to go. And then this side, it's starting to crack right back here. Definitely not my most admirable work. In fact, I think that's one of the most ugly welds I've ever welded in my entire life. But I filled the gap in and I piled it on, so this should be strong. In fact, I kind of even feel bad for making fun of the welds that I saw on this quad on the spoiler and in the front for the stabilizer mount. Dude, this is gonna have to go. Dude, like, what is this? Oh my God, dude.
Oh my God, dude.
That I noticed. This is not an OEM weld. I can tell you that right now. Oof, man, these are ugly welds. Maybe not. All right, so I'm gonna put some touch-up paint on this, and then I'm gonna throw the rest of the quad together and let's get it tuned up. All right, guys, I think we're actually about ready to ride this thing. I got her all back together. Can't even tell that the frame was cracked anymore. Once I put the flat black paint on there, it really doesn't look that bad. I flushed the rear brake, the front brakes. They were really dirty. Ugh, look at that. I got the chain on there. Nice roller chain, baby. No O-ring chains here. I like to get the most horsepower I possibly can, remove as much rolling resistance as I possibly can. And I've just been kind of going around doing little busy work kind of stuff. Well, not busy work. I mean, it's still important, but tidying up the wires, like up here. If you guys remember, it was a freaking bird's nest up here. The cables and stuff, I tried to route them nicely, you know, so that there's no interference or anything. I still have to do a little bit more tidying up here. I don't want to go too far though, because what I want to do is fire it up and actually get it to idle and run and see where we're at. So let's go ahead, fire this thing up. We'll see if it starts without the choke. Make sure our fuel's on. And all right. Well, that's good. It's got a different sound than I expected. It's kind of it almost sounds like it needs to be repacked, which is possible. And it's a used exhaust. I think the idle could come up just a little bit. It sounds pretty good. The top end is a little noisy, but you know, something that I love having you guys on my side, because all the Predator guys, not all of them, but a couple people reached out to me and they told me that these motors are noisy. Not noisy like exhaust wise, but you know, some motors are just noisy. And if you don't know those engines, it could seem like something's wrong. So we'll roll with it. I think that's just what it sounds like. And it actually sounds pretty good. I can tell it's a little rich though. It doesn't like the little snaps, so I think it's a little bit rich. Let's take it for a roll. Let's see if the transmission and everything works. I'll see how the roll-on power feels, and if it's blurby, that will be a sign that it's rich. I'll tell you what, this is a very high-sitting quad. Everything's really nice and tight, but it is definitely, it sits higher than the 400EX and it sits higher than the 250R, that's for sure. Oh, it's got some power, man. That was oh yeah. I don't want to go crazy with it. It's third gear, fourth gear. All right, man, transmission works. It's got good torque. Oh yeah. I want to try to show you guys the blubbering sound that I kind of heard, but I'm just going to kind of climb it up to the upper RPMs and we'll see how it holds out. Hear it? It's breaking up a little bit in the top end. It's pulling really good through the mid-range, but then at the top end it's like it wants to it doesn't want to stay smooth and strong. I don't think that's the rev limiter. I'm pretty sure that that is a result of jetting. All right, let's take our carb off and switch out the jets. Change out our main jet. I love these carburetors because you can change the main and you can change the pilot from just taking this little drain bolt off. You don't have to take the whole bowl off. Pull our jet out. 190. I'm going to jump it down to a 180. I'm going to skip 185. We'll see what it sounds like. Might have to adjust the accelerator pump a little bit. We'll let it warm up for a minute. Definitely want to keep an eye on the temperature since we're starting to lean it out here. Still breaking up top. It's smoking. Did I just see something smoking?
Oh, it's coming from the oil breather.
After I made this video, I came in and did a little bit of research. Apparently, the Predator is super sensitive to overfilling the crankcase with engine oil, and I did put a bit extra oil, so I think that's why this was going on. I actually took the quad out for probably another 20 minutes, and the smoking did stop, so I'm not sure what all that was about. But let me know in the comment section below your experiences with crankcase smoking.
Well, we're right around 150 degrees. We're good. I'd like to see it between 180 and 200, but of course that's when you're really riding it. This quad definitely has a strange feel though. Like it's gonna take some getting used to. All right, I let it idle for about 10 minutes and the temperature was around 160. So it definitely runs cool. I think it's still a little rich. Anyways, I'm pretty happy with this. It sounds like it runs pretty good. I'm getting more used to the sound. I feel like it sounded like crap initially, but it doesn't sound too bad. It's really loud. It's definitely a loud machine. It's a good thing we stopped because the 5.0 actually just rode around the neighborhood. That's what I gotta watch. I can't ride too long around here. People start calling the police.
Just a few more finishing touches, threw the plastics on the quad, and the Predator was complete. In order to get the jetting cracked, I had to take it to the trails, and man, we were way off. I ended up dropping the main jet all the way down to a 150. We started at a 190, but bringing it down to the 150, we got rid of that blurb, and it performed way better in the upper RPMs.
Hell yeah! Flipped up.
This a successful build, and it was a huge learning experience, man. The Polaris Predator is definitely a strange machine. Between mixing metric and standard fasteners, down to the strange, minute differences between year to year, all the way to downgrading the shocks in the final year of production in 2007, the Predator is just a weird machine. But I will say, it was super fun to ride, and I really enjoyed the quad. When all was said and done, we finished the project in exactly 1 month time from start to finish, which is actually quite incredible considering the parts that it needed. The total investment, including the $500 purchase price of the machine, was $3,973.64. If you're looking for a full breakdown of the expense sheet, there is a separate video on that, and it will be linked below. Immediately after the build, I put this quad up against a Raptor 660 with a big bore kit, Raptor 700, 250R, Banshee, and a few 400EXs, and while it may not have been the fastest of the bunch, it performed great. This quad would end up being my very first giveaway for the channel. It ended up in the hands of a lucky subscriber, and unfortunately, I think it's passed hands about 3 or 4 times now, and from what I've heard, it's been abused pretty good. I've heard through the grapevine that it's been on and off of Marketplace, and that the bottom end has possibly seized. I never was able to locate a good set of crank bearings, so we did run the original bearings that came with this machine. If it was that or something else, I just don't know. I will say though, this probably wasn't the best machine for a giveaway, as there were many finicky things, and with any performance build where you're putting radical components on there that you've never tried, it's always good to have the machine for a while and work out all the kinks. That weird smoking issue that we saw coming from the overflow tube during the test rides had to do with crankcase pressure, and after numerous research, this is something that the Predator does suffer from, and I never completely sorted out what was wrong. It's possible that under extended abuse, this starved the bottom end bearings of oil, and maybe that's why it seized. I don't know. When all is said and done, we took a machine that had been sitting for 3 years and was probably destined to be parted out or for the scrapyard. In 1 month, we turned it into a really fun machine and had tons of fun with it. When I brought this machine to Indiana to ride at Badlands, at least 10 subscribers got to ride the quad and they all loved it. So whatever the fate of this machine is, I think it was worth bringing back to life for the time being. In fact, I think this would be a great candidate for a hybrid build. If you know where this machine is, please send me a DM on Instagram or leave a comment below. Maybe we can do something with this machine in the future. But until then, guys, thank you for watching this video. I know this was a long one. I appreciate everybody that stays till the end and finishes these videos. I can't be doing this stuff without your guys' support. So thank you for watching, and if you did enjoy the content, please consider giving me a thumbs up and also consider subscribing to the channel. If you're looking to support the channel even further, there is the option to join, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.